Thank you so much for being here, Chantel. And with that, I'll turn it over to you and let you get started.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Chantel Oliver, and I'm so honored to guide you guys through this important conversation today. This session is designed for leaders at every level because resilience really starts with you. This will be an interactive session, so please, at any moment that you're prompted, put some information in the chat. I can't see the chat right now, so Justin, I'll need your help on that. But if you want to come off mute when I have
Yeah,
a,
absolutely.
please come off the mute. So I invite you guys let's get vulnerable together. All right. So, as a leader, you may often feel the expectation is to be strong, right? At all times, but leadership is not about carrying stress in silence. In this module, you will explore why mental health is not just a personal issue, but a leadership responsibility. You reflect on the pressures leaders face and how these pressures, when unacknowledged, can lead to burnout or reduce effectiveness. You would also be asked to consider how your own approach to stress influence your team. When you normalize open conversations about mental health, your team, they gain permission to prioritize their well-being. This actually creates a foundation of trust and psychological safety. So the goal is to equip you with the knowledge, awareness, and the practical tools needed to understand the impact of mental health on leadership, also recognize the cost of neglecting it, and to develop strategies to build personal resilience while creating a supportive and a productive culture for your teams. So, in the past month, how often have you felt mentally exhausted at work? So, if you don't mind, either someone come off the chat, post it in the chat, or come off mute and tell me always, sometimes, rarely, or never. I'll give you 15 seconds to do that. Oh, it just popped up for me. Look at that. Sometimes. Okay. Always. Mostly due to my boss, who's a patrol LT over dispatch. Oh, I can relate to that. Sometimes, occasionally. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for participating in that. So here's our learning objectives. We're going to define mental health, burnout, and compassion fatigue in leadership context. We're going to explain the impact of poor mental health on workplace culture, retention, and your team's performance. And then we're going to list the leadership practices that either hinder or support mental health in the workplace. We'll also discuss resilient strategies to strengthen personal and your team's well-being. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you to develop an action plan to integrate mental health awareness into your leadership practices. All right. So why does this matter? Well, leadership pressure affects more than just us as individuals. When we carry stress, it really ripples throughout. Burnout, it doesn't stay with one person. It silently spreads through your teams. So this is why mental health isn't just personal, it's a leadership responsibility. So basically, in a nutshell, if you have strong leaders, that means stronger teams, all right? So mental health, it encompasses balance, clarity, and the ability to handle responsibilities effectively. Conversely, though, when your mental health suffers, your team often feels the effect through miscommunication, reduced morale, or an increase in workplace stress. So it's important to maintain mental health for leaders because the stressors you face, constant decision making, accountability for outcomes, as well as the pressures from above and below, are uniquely demanding. So ideally, what mental health is, it is more than the absence of illness. It's also often seen as coping with stress effectively. And then you're trying to have that stable foundation for you to be able to make those clear decisions. And ultimately, it sets the tone for your overall well-being. That's what mental health is. All right. So here are some myths about leadership and mental health. This, which is a critical issue that revolves around it, that mental health, having it is a stigma, especially in leadership, and being able to not have it, not be able to control it. Because leaders, we struggle with our mental health. And unfortunately, sometimes we struggle silently. Many believers, we do that because we believe showing signs of struggle, it undermines our authority, which that's really definitely a myth. This strong leader myth, it creates a culture of silence where mental health needs are suppressed until they escalate. And then when they escalate, at that time, you're in a crisis mode. So breaking down this stigma, it requires you leaders to reframe vulnerability as a strength and normalize the conversations around well-being. So always, my thought is openness promotes psychological safety. Be open about what's going on with your mental health. There's nothing wrong with that. Basically, it's okay to be human. So, what is burnout? Well, burnout is one of the most common challenges for us as leaders. It's not just being tired, it is a long-term state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that's caused by chronic stress. Leaders experiencing burnout, we may lose motivation, we struggle with irritability, or become disconnected from your team. Unlike normal fatigue, burnout doesn't resolve with a weekend of rest, getting some sleep, a night's sleep. That's not going to help your burnout. It builds over time when stress outweighs your recovery. So basically, you got so much stress that you don't even have time to recover. That's burnout. So by learning to define and recognize burnout, you gain the ability to identify its early warning signs in yourself, and you can intervene before it spreads to your team. So in a nutshell, burnout is not just being tired, it's a long-term state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. Basically, like this picture says, I need help at that point. So, what is compassion fatigue? Well, compassion fatigue occurs when leaders and caregivers continually take on the emotional burdens of others. What are we doing 911? We're taking on the emotional burdens of others. Over time, their ability to empathize may decrease, leaving them detached or numb. That's where that dispatch humor, dark humor comes from. In leadership, compassion fatigue often shows up as a leader who withdraws from their people, not out of disinterest, but from depletion. They're just tired. They have nothing left, nothing else to give. Both burnout and compassion fatigue, it affects not just the individual, but it also affects the teams that the leaders lead. A leader struggling silently with these issues may become withdrawn, reactive, or unable to inspire people. And that's one of the things that leaders supposed to do is inspire people. But if they have been depleted, they have nothing to give. And you see that in a nutshell, continuously taking on those emotional burdens of others, you're steady depleting yourself unless you acknowledge that. And over time, your empathy, it may decrease. You can't give out any more empathy for anybody else. So these are things you have to be aware of. So why do you think compassion fatigue is overlooked in leadership roles? This is for you. Chat me up, please. Why do you think compassion fatigue is overlooked in leadership roles? Uh-oh, hold up. Trying to find my chat button. There it is. Nobody answered. Come on. Or come off mute. Why do you think compassion fatigue is often overlooked in leadership roles? Does it go back to that thing that leaders are supposed to be strong? Yep. Thank you. Leaders are expected to be strong. Feel like you're seen as weakness. Gotcha. Absolutely. All of those things. Yes, we're expected to be seen as strong. I know I've been in doing this for like 25 years. And when I first got it in this industry, there was definitely no compassion. You got to do it. Like there's no time to even think about what happened. You on to the next call. And if you show weakness, oh, you're not supposed to be in this profession. You can't do this. If you showed any type of weakness, that was the thing to do. But we have to change that mindset. We have to. It's important. All right. So the three combined. So each of these directly impacts leadership performance. Leaders who understand these definitions, we can better recognize how these conditions show up in professional environments. You can also begin to distinguish between normal stress and patterns that signal deeper issues that requires attention. This clarity provides a shared language for addressing challenges that many of us leaders and teams often face silently. So I like this picture right here. How to fill up your own mental well-being cup. So it's almost like your cup of coffee, right? You start with a daily practice of gratitude. What are you thankful for? And then you focus on the things that's within your control. And here you be disciplined with your sleep. So basically, you got to get that sleep. 7 to 8 hours is really good. I know for most of you guys, you're probably doing good if you're getting 4 or 5 hours. Um, Take a break from your electronic devices, and set your own boundaries, whatever that looks like for you. For me, I get up in the morning. The first thing I don't do is look at my phone because there might be something on there. If I check my email, that might be something that's going to stress me. I don't want to start my morning out like that. So I don't look at my phone for at least the first hour of the day. So have something that you do daily, and set your boundaries with that. It could be when you leave work. Hey, unless it's an emergency, I'm not looking at my emails for anything. If they need me, they'll call me on my phone. Just something that you can do to control, and also start with a daily gratitude practice. So those things are very helpful on how you can build your mental well-being cup. All right. So here's what I call a reflection challenge. I want you to pause and reflect. What signs of burnout or fatigue have you noticed in yourself or in leaders you've worked with? We're going to do this for 30 seconds, and that time will start right now. What signs of burnout or fatigue have you noticed in yourself or in leaders you've worked with? And in 30 seconds, I'm going to ask for some people to put some information in the chat. All right, 30 seconds is up. And I like that people have already put some information in the chat. Thank you so much. No energy for anything other than work. I go home to crash and try to get enough energy to go back. Wow. Yeah. That's tough right there. I definitely remember days like that when all it was nothing to do but work, work, come home. I'm doing work at home. Then next thing you know, I'm going back to work. So yeah, definitely can relate to that. Lack of passion. Oh wow. Yeah, that's tough right there. When you don't have the passion for something that you enjoy, ooh, that can definitely bring on that compassion fatigue. So yeah, exhaustion, not feeling rested no matter how much you sleep. Oh, definitely can relate to that too. Yes. Body aches, anxiety. Oh man, that's why I left one of my other jobs for anxiety purposes. Anger, can't make effective decisions, lack of empathy. Oh yes, those are really tough. Loss of connection, no energy. Yes. Can't get out of bed in the mornings. That's tough right there. Low energy, irritability, easily irritated. Yes. To know thyself. Yes. Not saying that these are any of you. You may have put these signs of some other leaders that you're aware of. So yes, those are definitely signs of burnout or fatigue. And is at that point, when those people, if it's you or someone else, they definitely need to take a step back and reflect and try to recenter to start anew. One of the things that used to help me when I first got in in this industry, I'm originally from Georgia. And so whenever I felt like I was starting to get into that exhaustion level when I was in that burnout state, I'd go take a trip back home. It was almost like home for me, going back to Georgia was like a time of peace and it was like a reset. So that was something that I used to do to reset me to get back focused. And then I come back and I'm ready to go. So whatever that is for you, you have to find that center and focus back to get back to who you were when you started, especially for that person who's lost the passion for the job. Definitely can relate to that as well. It almost becomes like a chore, and instead of fun and getting in it for the reason that you originally got in it for, whether it be helping people or whatever that case may be. So I can definitely relate to all of these. Thank you so much for those who participated in the chat. All right. So far, do we have any questions? Anyone have any questions? I'm going to assume no, and I'm going to keep on going. So understanding mental health and leadership. Have another question for you. Told y'all that this is interactive. Have you ever experienced a workplace culture that was negatively affected by leader stress or burnout? And if so, what did that look like? Now, it does, we're all friends here. So um, please feel free, and nobody's judging. Really, this is going to be very helpful. So, have you ever experienced a workplace culture that and you can only, if you want, you can put just yes or no if you want, but I invite you to put information in the chat. And if you want to guess, if you want to put yourself out there, if you want to just say this is my guess or what that looks like, please do that. I love this comment right here. I've been affected by, but I think as a leader, I have been the stressed out leader that caused the negativity. That is that is good. When you can say that you're the reason and acknowledge that, that means you are growing. You're in that state, you can acknowledge, hey, yes, I'm the problem. I need to fix me. I love that. I would say yes, I was her. Awesome. Supervisor. They had almost 30 years in 911 and no longer cared about professional growth or training for their center, which caused low morale. Yeah, and that really sucks. That really sucks because for two factors. One, and I like to play devil's advocate. That person been in it for 30 years. They've seen a lot, they've done a lot, don't know like the politics behind it. And sometimes you get to a point like, oh, screw this, I'm done. You know, nobody's gonna do nothing. On the other end, if we're still in the game at 30 years, we should be blessed and fortunate and realize that, hey, especially now, things have changed from when they were as when I started 25 years ago, where training is definitely a must for your staff. So that's unfortunate. Nerve-wracking. You do not know what kind of boss you're getting that day or that meeting. Oh yeah. I've seen people like that as well. And that is definitely a challenge. Yes, it looks like chaos, lack of accountability, and lack of standards. Yeah, that definitely would definitely look like chaos. I had to do a checkup from the neck up and find my why again. As I was affecting those I work with unintentionally. I love that. I love when we can acknowledge when we are the problem and be able to check ourselves. Very good. Thank you guys so much for participating in the chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So, what's the impact of poor mental health on workplace culture? Well, the health of a leader's mind, it directly shapes the culture of their workplace. It really does. When we as leaders are stressed or if we're disengaged, our teams, they often mirror that energy. So it's almost like you get what you give type of situation. Yes, a culture of tension, silence, or frustration emerges and the psychological safety disappears. Employees notice whether their leaders are as approachable and composed or distant and reactive. And this observation, that's what influences how the employees behave and interact. So going back to the comments here, this one specifically about chaos, how an organization looks like chaos because there's no accountability and there's any lack of standards. That's all on that leader. That's all on the leader. If we as leaders are not holding our team accountable, this can look like chaos in the center. And then that's where that poor mental health comes. It shows its ugly face. When a leader's mental health suffers, then it affects the entire team. I got to repeat that one more time. When the leader's mental health suffers, it impacts your entire team. Poor mental health affects workplace culture by eroding trust, ain't no trust, increasing stress among employees, and creating a sense of instability. Not good. Again, goes back to that comment about chaos. That's what chaos looks like. If a team member notices that their leader is constantly irritable, withdrawn, or overwhelmed, they may mirror these behaviors, resulting in a toxic or a disengaged work environment. So, how do you guys think that mental health influences whether employees stay or leave? Let's talk about it. Throw me something in the chat. How do you think a leader's mental health influences whether employees stay or leave? Do you think it affects it or you don't think it affects it? How do you think a leader's mental health influences whether employees stay or leave? Exactly. No one wants to work for a ticking time bomb. That's for sure. When a leader is negative, it affects the whole center. Absolutely. It surely does. Yes, yes, it does. Absolutely. 100% affects all. Yep. That is so true. Thank you guys so much. All right, we'll move on. So the impact, again, we're still talking about the impact of poor mental health on retention now. So retention is another area that's heavily influenced by leadership, mental health. Employees, they leave organizations not just because of pay. Most people think, I know back when I started, you would say if a job paid good, you just stay and suffer. Not these youngins. There's a new generation. They're going to give us the deuces quick, fast, in a hurry. They are out of here. They leave. So you can't keep people because of pay or the workload, but often because of poor leadership is why we may have an issue with retention. If a leader demonstrates burnout or unable to support their team, employees may feel undervalued and unsupported, leading them to seek healthier work environments. That's what they're going to do. They're going to leave this chaos, and I'm trying to go somewhere else where there's either no chaos or less chaos. In industries like emergency communications, where turnover is already high, poor mental health and leadership can accelerate this problem. So, employees lead poor leadership, not jobs. Burnout accelerates turnover. Poor mental health equals poor decisions. Reduce creativity, more errors. Because if I'm focused on whether or not you about to go nuck and buck on me, I'm tending gonna make more errors than not. If I'm feel like my psychological safety is affected, I'm thinking about you're coming out this office and what are you gonna say? Or if I gotta go to your office, what are you gonna say? All that is creating anxiety for your staff. All right, let's move on. Team performance also declines when leaders ignore their mental health. So as you can see so far, there are so many factors that affect the workplace based on the leader's mental health. Stress and burnout, it reduces your ability to make thoughtful decisions. So my leaders, if you're not getting that proper rest, if your mental health is suffering, you might tend to make poor decisions because that's where that irritability come from. Also, you may be unable to stay creative or resolve conflicts effectively. This shows up in mistakes, it reduces creativity, and it diminishes collaborations. So how does that look? People don't want to work with each other. People are quick to jump, to yell out something and quickly without even thinking about it. By contrast, though, leaders who manage their well-being inspire confidence and consistency. And those things are really important, especially in emergency communications. Being consistent. When your staff doesn't have to say, well, I wonder who's going to show up today. Wonder which personality is going to show up this day. You don't want them. You want to be consistent. What you get from Chantel, this is Chantel all day, every day. The same person every morning. Go in, greet staff. Good morning. Good morning. A couple of hours later, go back. How's your day going? Consistency. When people see that, they tend to expect that. And when they don't get it, they're like, well, hey, Chantel, you didn't come out here 2 hours. You okay? Oh, yeah, I got caught up in a meeting. I'm sorry. Consistency, those things. People deal better when you're consistent. This allows your teams to perform at their highest level. Organizations pay a significant price when our mental health is ignored, both financial and in the loss of trust and morale. And I hear that all the time in the comm center about morale being low. And there's conflicting thoughts, opinions on who's responsible for the morale in the comm center. Some people say it's the individual, and some people say it's the leader. Well, I think everything starts at the top. The leadership definitely influences everything that goes down to the bottom. So as a leader, if you're exhibiting what morale looks like in your center, ideally that should trickle down to your staff. Now, granted, there are going to be a few people who go against the grain, but that's okay. That you leave that to your staff. They'll help self-correct that. All right, moving on. So the cost of ignoring mental health. Leaders, we play a direct role in either hindering or supporting mental health. So we want to be supportive. The cost of that and leadership goes far beyond individual well-being. When we as leaders operate in a constant state of stress or burnout, it definitely impacts your team through your poor decision making, emotional vitality, as well as reduced availability. These ripple effects, again, erode trust, morale, and performance across your organization. Leadership practices send strong messages about what is value in the workplace. Some practices hinder well-being, even when leaders do not intend them to. So we don't want to do that. So here I have some examples, of course, of what that looks like. That M word, man, micromanaging. If we want our teams to grow, we got to stop micromanaging. Discouraging long hours without rest. Definitely, I know, again, dating myself 25 years ago, I worked 12 hours, 16, up to the legal limit of my ability to work. And my leaders allowed me to. But that's not healthy because over time that creates burnout. Also, ignoring signs of stress in others. When you see people are irritable, more than likely they are burned out. Or as leaders, us modeling unhealthy work habits. These behaviors can signal to employees that productivity matters more than people. All these examples that I just went over. So if your people mean more to you than the productivity, do not do these things. This creates unnecessary pressure and also discouragement. So I want you to be mindful. I want you to be mindful about sending after hours emails. What I do for that is usually I schedule my emails to go out, even though I might be up at 11 o'clock. I know that my team, they may not be, or if they are, I don't, unless it's urgent. And usually if it's urgent, that's going to be a phone call or something of that nature. But if I send out an after hours emails, I'm going to have it scheduled to go to that staff member by a certain time, because most time as the leader in the organization, people think that if they receive an email from you that they got to respond. And I don't want that. So it's important that we have to notice subtle ways that we as leaders may hinder mental health without even realizing it. Never taking time off. That's something that I had a bad habit of doing. Within the last 3 to 4 years, I had to change that. Not just because it was healthy, but because of my better half, like demanded it. Like, hey, I'm gonna be the one who has to take care of you if you get sick. So yeah, so I take at least 2 to 3 vacations a year. Sometimes I'll get squeezed out of another one, but these are things that I do. Also, when I'm off, I'm off. So those are ways you, the leader, have to show that example by practicing that. Also, staying silent when stress is visible can unintentionally reinforce the idea that employees must push through the exhaustion. By identifying and replacing these habits with intentional actions that promote balance and openness, we as leaders can create a healthier culture. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to create a healthy culture. All right. So I have a comparison. But before I go over that, I want to tell you that teams that are led by burned out leaders, they experience disengagement at higher attrition rates. Again, teams that are led by burned out leaders experience disengagement and higher attrition rates. When employees see that their leaders are struggling but unwilling to address it, they conclude that mental health is not valued in that organization. This results in reduced loyalty and long-term disengagement, which cost organizations both financially and culturally. There are also some hidden costs, such as presentism when employees and leaders are physically present, but mentally they are checked out. So with that, this decreases productivity and innovation. In high pressure industries, unchecked stress also increase the risk of errors, accidents, and miscommunication, which can have serious consequences. And of course, the other one is absenteeism, which is a cause of employee turnover. This one is one that we can visibly see. So a lot of times when your employees are not at work is because they're burned out. When they're calling out sick all the time, they're probably burned out or they're checked out for whatever reason that may be. So I want to talk about some supportive practices. Um, Supportive practices can help to strengthen mental health. Leaders who model balance by setting your boundaries, encourage your staff to use wellness resources, and create open lines of communication. You as leaders, you contribute to a healthier work environment. You recognize accomplishments, you provide consistent feedback, and you ensure your employees feel heard is also practices that build trust and also reduce stress among your team. By listing and practicing these behaviors, you can signal to your team that well-being is valued, not ignored. So as leaders, we must recognize that ignoring our own mental health and our team's well-being isn't neutral, it's actively harmful. So by neglecting this responsibility, you undermine the very performance and trust that you are trying to protect. So keep that in mind. So how do we build resilience as a leader? Resilience is the ability to adapt to stress and recover from your setbacks. And it can be cultivated. Leaders who prioritize resilience are better equipped to guide your teams through challenges with clarity as well as stability. So that is really important. So here I'm going to talk about some resilient strategies. It begins with, first of all, being self-aware, like, oh my God, I am tired. I need to do something about it. So being self-aware of that, the ability to notice your stress levels, identify your triggers, and take corrective action before your burnout takes hold. That is so important that you are self-aware of those things. Resilience is not about avoiding stress, but about learning to recover and adapt, which sounds easy, but it's not, because when you get into those routines of, hey, I got to do this, you got deadlines, sometimes it's easier said than done. So leaders who practice resilience, you demonstrate the ability to bounce back from your setbacks, maintain perspective under pressure, and you inspire confidence in your teams. Resilience, it can be cultivated through intentional habits, self-awareness, and you have to have your supportive structure. And supportive structure could look like, family members or accountability partner, whatever that is, but that can be your supportive structure, because it's hard. It is not easy to, especially when you've been doing things for several years, and it's almost like you're shocking your system, like, oh, I'm actually on vacation. Like, I'm not taking my laptop with me on my vacation. I am truly vacationing. So yeah, some of those things are easier said than done, and it's going to take practice, but you can do it. I know you can. So here's some resilient strategies. You have your regular check-ins. Leaders, you can encourage resilience by holding these regular check-ins. And that can look like whatever you want it to. That can be, maybe some of you guys have briefing sessions before the shift starts, or you can just do a one-on-one. That was one of the things I used to do. I would go out to the floor, like at least at a minimum 3 times a day. The first check-in was good morning check-in. The second check-in was right before lunch, mid-morning. Hey, how's everything going? And I may talk about, hey, something that they've talked to me about in their personal life. And then that afternoon check-in, like, hey, how's everything going? Everything still all right? You need anything? That's just an example of how you can do a check-in. Also, debriefing after those high stress events. That is so important when your team member have a stressful event, car chase, it could be a suicide, whatever the case may be, whatever it is, debrief. And some are going to tell you, oh, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, because we built this culture in emergency communications that, oh yeah, I got to take the next call, I got to be strong. Well, you as a leader may have to just take that person off the floor and just say, hey, I just want to talk to you about that call. How you doing? Things like that. Debrief after that. Recognize those small wins. I am so goofy. Um, I would pick any moment to highlight something. I don't care how small it is. It could be something that maybe in training, the person struggled to get addresses correct. I'm going to go out and do a dance or whatever it is to recognize that person. We have to do that. We have to build that culture. And also promoting collaborative problem solving. Collaborative problem solving is bringing those veterans with your trainees or your people who just newly got cut loose. That helps build up relationships. And one of the most important things, I think, is being empathetic. It's okay as a leader to be empathetic without losing accountability. Yes, yes, yes. You have to listen actively, validate emotions, because again, that's that person's emotions. Just because I may feel a certain way about something, like, oh, like, why are they upset about that? It's okay. Everybody has different things that affects them differently. Just because I may be upset and you're not, doesn't mean my feelings should not be validated. So we have to validate people's emotions. Yes. And then set clear expectations and model compassion with strength. Compassion is strength. This approach prevents us as leaders from swinging between harsh detachment and over-identification with your team's struggles. All right, so how could a leader's resilience practice influence the way their team responds to challenges? How could a leader's resilience practice influence the way their team responds to challenges? We're almost done, my good people. This is the last poll I got for you. How could a leader's resilience practice influence the way their team responds to challenges? I'm sure some of you guys have seen that in action. And I know you're typing. I know you're feverishly typing over there. Oh, I'm still waiting. I will not move on. All right. It could give them confidence to act. Absolutely. Yes. And act without having to come and ask you, is it okay? Right? Can set a positive culture. Absolutely. Because that's what we're going for, right? But again, we have to, it models how your employees, absolutely. I love that response. It models how your employees respond to their own challenges. Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. All right. All right. So this is where you have to develop your, oh yeah, one more thing. Not every issue is a 911 emergency. They learn how to grow. Absolutely. Love that response. Good dog. Love it, y'all. All right. So now I want you to develop your action plan. It's going to be a quick 2 minutes reflection. I want you to think about your current leadership role. What's one barrier or challenge you see to making mental health awareness part of your leadership practice? Think about your current leadership role. What's one barrier or challenge you see to making mental health awareness part of your leadership practice? And I'm gonna give you, let's see here, give you a minute to think about that. I know this is a quick reflection, but I want to have time for Q&A. All right, minute starts now. Think about your current leadership role. What's one barrier or challenge you see to making mental health awareness part of your leadership practice? Getting the buy-in from others, absolutely. Keeping the project going, love that. That is definitely a challenge. Getting the buy-in from the TCs and gaining their trust, that is, yes, absolutely. I want you to think about that. How can you gain their trust? Like what, and you don't have to answer in the chat, but I just want you to think about this, Napier. How can you get their buy-in? How can you gain their trust? Because getting their buy-in starts with gaining their trust. If they can trust you, so how can you gain their trust? That's one thing you want. Yeah, definitely follow through on what is said. Absolutely. Small wins, being supportive of growth. Yes, absolutely. Those definitely, that's the timer. Yes, definitely. Thank you guys. I believe I can make it a part of my action. However, I think I would not get a buy-in for younger employees. I don't get them to ever leave this job as a broken person. Yeah. So I know for the young folks, the younger generation, the people that's 20 years younger than I am, I know it's a challenge, but they they may not, they will buy in. And I think they do buy in. It's harder to see that now because that's not this job is probably not something that they're taking as serious as they think. They may be like me when I first was just a job, but eventually I realized, oh no, it's more than a job. This is a serious job. Oh my God, I gotta do the right thing here. It's a profession. And I know it can be hard, but don't give up on them. All right. So one thing I want you to take with you is I want you to think about one small action you can take in the next 30 days to normalize mental health awareness in your team. This is not something you have to put in the chat. I do want you to think about this and tell this to yourself. What one small action that I can do in the next 30 days that's going to normalize mental health awareness in my team? And if there's support or resources that you would need to help you do this, I want you to write that down too. And this is just for yourself. Again, what one small action you can take in the next 30 days to normalize mental health awareness in your team, and what support or resources would you need help in to accomplish this? And the final thing you have to ask yourself, well, how will I know if I made progress? How do I know if this even worked? So again, that's for you. So to wrap this up, integrating mental health awareness into leadership isn't about any type of grand gesture, y'all. They're not expecting anything grand from us. They just the small wins, recognizing those are really important. Providing feedback, constructive feedback, not micromanaging, just giving them an opportunity to grow. That's what they want. It's about consistent small steps like the one you just committed to. If every leader does this, we build cultures that are strong, healthier, and more sustainable. All right. So I gave you guys more time, like 12 minutes to Q&A, questions, answers. I got them. Let's go. Hit me up. Guess no questions.
I was going to say they were doing a lot of interacting there for a minute. Now there's no questions.
Any comments?
There you
How do you
go.
All right. How do you address leaders who are not living the standard? In meetings, they say they care, but are not acting that way. So, haha, uh, that's tricky. And it's tricky because it depends on where you sit on that. If 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 I'm a peer to peer, if it's me and let's just say if I'm a supervisor and that's the supervisor, I'm gonna definitely not have any qualms about, hey, you jacking up here. What the heck? You're not leading by example. Now, I've also had it to where it was my superior. Definitely don't do it in an open setting. Do not call them out in an open setting. I would definitely recommend asking to have a meeting with them and say, hey, just, and your tone, you can be direct, but watch the tone, if that makes sense. Because sometimes our tone can put people in a defensive state unintentionally. Um, and if your leader is that one that is really open to constructive criticism, they will hear you, they would acknowledge it and try to take action to change that. However, if they live in a world of they can't do no wrong, I still would bring it to their attention. But unfortunately, everybody's not going to change just because you brought it to their attention. I hope that helped.
I know Kelly says this quite a bit. It's checking for understanding, right? Maybe
Absolutely.
not frame it in a way that you're checking for understanding and just trying to understand their position and see what they're thinking without being controversial, for lack of a better term, right?
Yes. Yes. I love that. Checking for understanding. That is a lot of times for me personally, when I've had leaders that, that I felt was doing something out of order or whatever, I would just say, hey, I would play dumb, so to speak. Like, I I thought, I want to make sure that I understand whatever it was, I would play like the low person in that sense. Just because I didn't want to rock the boat in a sense. And I didn't know how that person was going to come across. Because sometimes again, people get offended. And depending on the work environment, it may make things better or worse. So I love that, Justin. Checking for understanding.